Americans asked, "Why should we attack Hitler? He didn't attack us." Meanwhile, millions of Jews and other undesirable groups were placed in concentration camps. After Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, the United States built detention camps for Japanese living in America. Fueled by an already strong anti-Japanese prejudice, those of Japanese descent, even American citizens, were forced to leave their homes and take up residence inside internment camps. The remnants of German death camps stand as silent witness to unspeakable horrors. The ruins of American detention centers are a reminder just how easily cherished freedom can be removed. The Holocaust Museum and Education Center preserves the legacy of the Holocaust and has a special exhibit on Japanese detention camps. The museum offers collection-based exhibits to promote human rights and dignity. It is designed to allow guests to follow the path that led to the extermination of peoples based on their ethnicity, religion, political beliefs, disabilities, or sexual orientation. This video includes a tour of the museum and additional historical photographs taken during the events of the Second World War. Before World War II, Germany had a thriving Jewish population. Jews had lived in Germany for thousands of years. They were well integrated into German society, spoke German, and identified with the nationality. With the rise of Hitler, that was all about to change. The Treaty of Versailles, which ended World War I, left Germany in financial ruin, the people feeling lost, and the government politically weak. It was fertile ground for the rise of a dictator. His book, Mein Kampf, became a bestseller in Germany after Hitler's rise to power. His speeches gave hope to a population eager to regain a sense of German being great and powerful again. His popularity continued to rise beginning in 1933. His powerful speeches contained promises of improving Germany's economy and world status. His rallies drew ever larger crowds, and the people adored him. Many parts of his speech also blamed the Jews for the financial collapse after the war and pandered to the already strong anti-Semitism in Germany. In 1941, Jews were stripped of their citizenship and rights. They were required to carry papers to verify their identity, which could be demanded at any time. They lost the right to vote and the ability to get a passport. Only those of pure German blood could be citizens. Following this was the German boycott of Jewish businesses. Signs were posted: "Do not buy from Jews. Buy only from Germans." As many Jewish children as possible were evacuated to England. America was not so welcoming. There was division in the country about how many German Jews would be let to immigrate. In 1939, hundreds of Jewish refugees arrived from Germany. They were ordered to return. Hitler's control over the German people was now complete. The Hitler Youth was established to foster total loyalty to Hitler and the Nazi Party. Kristallnacht, the Night of Broken Glass. It was a pogrom, or riot, against Jews carried out by German paramilitary groups, the Hitler Youth, and German civilians. They destroyed Jewish homes, hospitals, schools, and synagogues. 1,400 Jewish temples were damaged or destroyed. "7,000 Jewish businesses were smashed. Homes were broken into and ransacked. "30,000 Jewish men were arrested and incarcerated. Hitler started World War II in 1939. He would eventually take over most of Europe. Ghetto means a restricted or segregated area. After Germany invaded Poland, the Nazis designated certain areas of cities for Jews only. Jews were uprooted from their homes through forcible expulsions. They were considered Untermenschen, subhuman. The ghettos were walled off. No one could enter or leave. This was all done with full knowledge of the German people. The conditions in the ghettos led to inevitable conflict with the authorities. There were attempts at resistance. All failed. The Jewish resistance was gathered up. Some faced firing squads. Others were simply shot in the street or hung from the nearest balcony. The Jewish question, simply put, was a debate that began in 17th century Europe about how, or even if, Jews should be assimilated. Some wanted to grant them full citizenship. Others, no rights at all. The phrase was used in anti-Semitic movements beginning in 1880. The Wannsee Conference was a meeting of senior Nazi officials. The museum documents how the Germans classified race into pure German blood, Mischling or mixed blood, and Jewish. The purpose of the conference was to make certain all agencies had a clear understanding of the German solution to the Jewish question: mass extermination. It was highly organized genocide. The Jews were gathered up from the ghettos. They were placed in holding areas awaiting transport. They could only bring what they could carry and were loaded into freight cars. The museum displays the type of car used. Each car would have held up to 100, standing for the entire trip. Most trains ended up at the most well-known death camp, Auschwitz. The journey took an average of 4 days. Between 1941 and 1944, an average of 1.5 trains arrived each day. Many were already dead in the cars when they arrived. They were made to disrobe before given a shower and the official camp outfit, one of which is on display at the museum. Belongings were confiscated. Suitcases, eyeglasses, shoes, wedding bands, piles of clothes, and women's hair, shaved off and shipped in sacks to be used for socks and mattresses for submarine crews. Local townsfolk were allowed to take what was left. The population of the camp grew to 90,000. This required constant adjustment of the methods and speed of execution. Barracks that were designed for 800 were now packed with 1,600. The camps had reached capacity. Crematoriums were required. The Holocaust Museum has a scale model. Upon entering, they were made to strip. They were then led into the gas chamber, thinking it was going to be a shower. These chambers still stand at Auschwitz. The bodies were then piled up, awaiting cremation in an adjacent room. When the ovens were overloaded, the bodies were burned in open fire pits. This process continued 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In 1944, there were at least 1,000 concentration camps. By the time the Allies entered Berlin, German citizens themselves had lost everything. Germany fell in May of 1945. The liberation of the camps followed soon after. Jews were able to pass freely out of the gate they once entered. While the Allies were happy to see so many smiling faces, they were totally unprepared for the horrors they would discover. The children suffered the same fate as their parents. They wanted to go to America or any place that would take them. Sadly, children like Aaron would have to wait. America was not ready for them. In 1924, President Coolidge had signed the Immigration Act. It was the most stringent immigration act in the nation's history. America had a strong anti-Jewish sentiment even after the war. Congress, not wanting to upset their constituents, did nothing to increase the quota of Jews allowed to immigrate. President Truman stepped in and in 1948 signed Public Law 774. This increased the number of visas available to immigrate to America. They would agree to renounce any previous citizenship. That was followed by classes introducing them to American laws and customs. Finally, they were proudly sworn in as citizens. The museum exhibits dozens of certificates of citizenship issued to Jews. The genocide would not go unanswered. The trials were held in 1945 in Nuremberg, Germany, at the Palace of Justice. The 22 Nazi prisoners were held in individual cells, each with its own guard. The charges included crimes against humanity, violation of international treaties, and mass genocide. The testimony went on for almost a year. The verdicts were read in October 1945. 12 defendants were sentenced to death. 7 were given sentences up to 20 years. Only 3 were acquitted. The museum has an excellent section on how and why genocide continues to occur to this day. The effects the attack on Pearl Harbor had on Japanese living in the United States is featured in a special exhibit. When Roosevelt declared a state of war with Japan, there was already a very strong anti-Japanese sentiment in America. Executive Order 9066 established internment camps for Japanese living on the west coast of America. It was signed by President Roosevelt in 1942. It was based on the provisions of the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. It authorized the forced relocation and incarceration of over 120,000 Japanese Americans to camps in remote areas of the western United States. 2/3 were American citizens. FBI agents without warrants were authorized to search homes looking for spies. The Japanese were forced to close their businesses and abandon their homes. No one was exempt. Even those who fought for America in the First World War. Families were tagged for identification. They would then board buses under guard, which took them to trains for transport to the internment camps. Children who the day before were reciting the Pledge of Allegiance were removed to an unfamiliar area. Upon arrival, the prisoners were read the rules of the camp and shown to their barracks to begin their imprisonment. The display at the museum presents the work of 8 artists who reflect on the effects of Executive Order 9066. One piece contains thousands of authentic identification tags. Another presents photos of many who were imprisoned. The War Relocation Authority maintained 10 incarceration camps in the western United States. The camps closed in 1944. The former prisoners were allowed to take only what they could carry. They were given a train ticket and $25. In 1976, President Ford finally terminated Executive Order 9066. In 1980, President Carter signed the recommendation for reparations. In 1988, President Reagan signed the Civil Liberties Act, which included an official apology and $20,000 to each survivor. A monument stands as a reminder of the injustice done to hundreds of thousands. In Auschwitz, many of the buildings remain, so future generations will never forget the horrors of the Holocaust. The museum has a room of remembrance. The names on the wall represent the 6 million Jews and the millions of others deemed undesirable by the Reich who were murdered during the Holocaust. The fight against hate and racism has not ended. In 1978, neo-Nazis wanted to march in Skokie. It had a large Jewish population and was home to many Holocaust survivors. After intense opposition, the rally was moved to Marquette Park in Chicago. The Jewish community and those against hate and prejudice turned out by the thousands in protest. The Illinois Holocaust Museum reminds us that the fight against such inhumane and contemptible behavior must never end.